Let me be completely honest with you right from the start. I had $200. That was it. Not $200 as a starting point with more waiting in the back pocket. Not $200 plus whatever I already had in the pantry. $200, one grocery run, and a goal: 6 months of emergency food for one person. No cheating, no pulling stuff from an existing stockpile, no counting the rice I already had sitting in the cabinet. I started from zero, I set a strict budget, and I documented every single item I bought. And by the end of this video, you're going to see exactly what I got, exactly how much it cost, and exactly how it adds up to 6 months of real, edible food that doesn't taste like cardboard or desperation. But here's the thing I want you to understand before we even get into the list. This isn't a fantasy prep. This isn't, what would I buy if I had infinite money and a bunker in Montana? This is a real world, practical. It actually fits in a normal apartment pantry build. The kind of thing a regular person with a regular life and a tight budget can actually do. So let's get into it. Before I show you the items, let me explain the framework I use to make these decisions. Because walking into a store with $200 and no plan is how you end up with 6 bags of chips and 3 cases of soda. You need a system. The system I used comes down to 4 pillars. Pillar 1 is calories. Your body needs energy to function. In an emergency, you're probably not running marathons, but you're also not sitting completely still. A reasonable target for a resting adult is somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 calories a day. I aimed for 1,800. Over 6 months, that's roughly 324,000 calories total. That sounds like an enormous number until you start doing the math on bulk staples, and then it actually becomes very achievable on a budget. Pillar 2 is nutrition balance. Calories alone won't keep you healthy. If all you eat is white rice for 6 months, you will develop nutritional deficiencies that can seriously harm your health. So every item I bought had to serve a purpose beyond just calories. Protein, fat, vitamins, fiber. I wasn't building a gourmet kitchen, but I was building something that wouldn't leave me malnourished. Pillar 3 is shelf life. Everything on this list has a minimum shelf life of 2 years. Most of it has a shelf life of 5 to 25 years if stored properly. Because a 6-month pantry only works if the food is actually still edible when you need it. Pillar 4 is practicality. The food on this list can be prepared with minimal equipment. Some of it can be eaten straight out of the can or package. Most of it requires nothing more than water and a heat source, because in a real emergency, you might not have access to a full working kitchen. Now, with that framework in mind, let me take you through every category and every item. We're going to start with the foundation of the entire pantry, which is the grain category. This is your caloric backbone. This is what keeps the lights on, metabolically speaking. The first item is white rice. I bought 25 pounds of white rice, and I want you to understand why I chose white rice over brown rice. Brown rice has more nutritional value. That's true. But brown rice has a shelf life of about 6 months due to the oils in the bran. White rice, stored properly, can last 20 to 30 years. For a long-term pantry build, white rice is the only choice. 25 pounds of white rice cost me around $13 at a warehouse club. That 25 pounds contains roughly 45,000 calories. Let that sink in for a moment. The second grain item is rolled oats. I bought 10 pounds of old-fashioned rolled oats for about $7. Oats are one of the most nutritionally complete grains you can buy. They have fiber, protein, and complex carbohydrates. They cook in 5 minutes with just hot water, and they're versatile enough to eat as breakfast, as a savory porridge, or even as a thickener for soups and stews. 10 pounds of oats gives you roughly 17,000 calories and will stay fresh in a sealed container for about 2 years, longer if stored in cooler conditions. Third is all-purpose white flour, 5 pounds for about $3. You might be wondering why flour when you could just buy bread. Here's why. Bread goes stale in days. Flour stored in an airtight container lasts 1 to 2 years. And with flour, you can make flatbreads, dumplings, thickening agents for sauces, and simple baked goods. It gives you flexibility that buying pre-made products simply doesn't. Fourth is pasta. I bought 4 pounds of dry pasta, a mix of spaghetti and penne, for about $4. Pasta stored in a cool, dry place lasts 2 to 3 years. It cooks quickly, it pairs with almost anything, and it provides a comforting, filling meal that doesn't feel like emergency food. Psychologically, that matters more than people realize. Fifth is cornmeal, 2 pounds for about $2. Cornmeal lets you make cornbread, polenta, and simple pancakes. It adds variety to the rotation and gives you another way to use up other ingredients in creative ways. Total for grains, roughly $29. Total calories from grains alone, approximately 70,000. That's already 40 days of food just from the grain category. Now we move to legumes. Legumes are the protein engine of a budget pantry. They're cheap, they're shelf-stable, they're nutritionally dense, and they're criminally underappreciated by people who are new to food storage. First, dried black beans. 5 pounds for about $5. Black beans are high in protein, high in fiber, rich in iron, and they pair with rice to create a complete protein profile, meaning together they give you all the essential amino acids your body can't produce on its own. 5 pounds of dried black beans gives you roughly 7,700 calories and enough beans to make dozens of meals. Second, dried lentils. 4 pounds for about $5. Here's why lentils are special in an emergency pantry. Unlike most dried beans, lentils don't need to be soaked overnight before cooking. You can go from dry lentil to fully cooked lentil soup in about 30 minutes. That's a massive advantage when time, fuel, or water might be limited. Lentils are also extraordinarily nutritious, with high levels of folate, manganese, and plant-based iron. Third, canned beans. I bought 12 cans, a mix of kidney beans, chickpeas, and pinto beans. About 6 cans for $4, so 12 cans for $8 total. Why canned if I already have dried? Because canned beans require zero cooking, zero water beyond what you use to rinse them. In a scenario where fuel is limited or water is scarce, a can of beans you can eat straight out of the can is a completely different level of convenience than dried beans that need an hour of boiling. Fourth, peanut butter. 4 jars of 18 ounces each, roughly $12 total. Peanut butter is one of the most calorie-dense, protein-rich, shelf-stable foods you can buy. 2 tablespoons of peanut butter contains about 190 calories and 8 grams of protein. It requires no preparation. It can be eaten directly with a spoon, spread on crackers, stirred into noodles, or mixed into a sauce. And people will actually want to eat it when morale is low and appetite is uncertain. Total for protein and legumes, around $30. Calories added, roughly 28,000. Next, we have the canned vegetables and fruits category. This is where nutrition comes in beyond just carbohydrates and protein. First, canned tomatoes. I bought 10 cans of crushed tomatoes, about $6. Canned tomatoes are the base of hundreds of meals. Tomato sauce, soup, stew, shakshuka. They add acid, flavor, and vitamins, especially vitamin C and lycopene. They transform a bland bowl of rice and beans into something that actually tastes like food. Second, canned corn. 6 cans for about $4. Corn adds sweetness and variety. It can be eaten as a side dish, mixed into salads, or stirred into chili. It's one of those foods that, in a monotonous emergency diet, feels like a small luxury. Third, canned peas. 6 cans for about $4. Peas are higher in protein than most vegetables, and they add color and nutrition to any dish. Fourth, canned spinach. 4 cans for about $3. Fresh vegetables won't be an option for long in an emergency. Canned spinach is one of the best shelf-stable sources of iron, calcium, and vitamins A and K. It's not the most exciting food in the world, but it's doing real nutritional work. Fifth, canned fruit. I bought 8 cans of mixed fruit and peaches in their own juice, about $6. In an extended emergency, having something sweet is more important psychologically than most people give credit for. Canned fruit packed in juice rather than syrup is lower in sugar and actually provides real vitamins. Sixth, canned carrots. 4 cans for about $2. Carrots provide beta-carotene, which your body converts to vitamin A. They're dense and filling when added to stews. Total for canned vegetables and fruits, roughly $25. Now we come to canned proteins, because while beans and peanut butter are excellent, having actual meat protein in the pantry changes the character of your meals entirely. First, canned tuna. 24 cans for about $24. Tuna is one of the best values in emergency food storage. Each can contain around 25 grams of protein. Tuna can be eaten straight from the can, mixed into pasta, stirred into rice, or turned into a simple salad with a little bit of oil and canned vegetables. It keeps for 3 to 5 years. Buy it in water, not oil, for better caloric balance. Second, canned chicken. 8 cans for about $16. Canned chicken is something a lot of first-time preppers overlook, but it's incredibly versatile. Chicken and rice, chicken soup, chicken mixed with pasta and tomato sauce. Having actual shredded chicken in a can elevates your meal options significantly. Third, canned sardines. 6 cans for about $5. Before you scroll past this, hear me out. Sardines are one of the most nutritionally complete foods on Earth. They're loaded with omega-3 fatty acids, calcium, vitamin D, and protein. They're shelf-stable for up to 5 years, and they're incredibly cheap per gram of protein. If you don't like the taste of sardines plain, they become much more palatable when mixed into pasta or rice dishes with strong flavors like tomato and garlic. Total for canned proteins, roughly $45. This brings us to fats and oils, which is a category many beginner preppers completely neglect. And this is a serious mistake. Fat is the most calorie-dense macronutrient. 1 gram of fat contains 9 calories, compared to 4 calories per gram from protein or carbohydrates. In a situation where calories are scarce, fat is your friend. Fat also helps your body absorb fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, E, and K. And fat makes food taste better, which matters enormously for morale. First, vegetable oil. I bought 1 large container of vegetable oil, roughly 64 ounces, for about $7. Vegetable oil stored in a cool, dark place lasts about 2 years. It's used in cooking almost everything. Second, coconut oil. 1 jar, 14 ounces, for about $7. Coconut oil is more shelf-stable than most vegetable oils and has a higher smoke point, making it better for high-heat cooking. It also imparts a subtle flavor that makes plain grains taste significantly better. Third, olive oil. One bottle, 16 ounces, for about $6. Olive oil is used raw as a dressing and finisher. Drizzling olive oil over a bowl of lentils or beans makes them taste like an actual meal rather than survival food. Total for fats and oils, about $20. Now we get to what I call the flavor shelf. And I want to spend a moment on this because it might be the most underestimated category in this entire build. Here's a scenario. You've been eating rice and beans for 2 weeks. The rice is fine, the beans are fine, but they taste exactly the same every single day. Your appetite starts to drop. Your mood gets worse. You start skipping meals because you just can't face the bowl again. This is called appetite fatigue, and it's a real documented problem in emergency food situations. The solution is not more expensive food. The solution is seasoning. First, salt. One large canister of iodized salt, about $2. Salt is not just a flavor enhancer. Iodized salt prevents iodine deficiency, which can cause thyroid problems and cognitive impairment. Salt is also used for food preservation and wound cleaning in extended emergencies. Second, black pepper. One jar for about $2. Self-explanatory, but essential. Third, garlic powder. One jar for about $2. Garlic powder transforms plain rice, beans, and lentils. It's one of the most flavor-dense seasonings per gram that exists. Fourth, onion powder. One jar for about $2. Same principle as garlic. Together, garlic powder and onion powder form the flavor base for hundreds of dishes. Fifth, cumin. One jar for about $2. Cumin makes beans taste like actual restaurant food. Cumin and canned tomatoes together over black beans is a genuinely satisfying meal. Sixth, chili flakes. One jar for about $2. Heat adds complexity. It also makes you eat more slowly, which helps with the psychological experience of eating. Seventh, bay leaves. One package for about $2. Bay leaves added to any simmering pot of beans or grains add a depth of flavor that is out of proportion with their cost. Eighth, soy sauce. 2 bottles for about $4. Soy sauce is umami in a bottle. It makes rice and noodle dishes taste savory and complete. A few splashes of soy sauce on plain white rice is genuinely delicious. It also contains salt, doubling as both a seasoning and a salt source. Ninth, apple cider vinegar. 1 bottle for about $3. Vinegar is used in cooking, in pickling, and in preserving food that you forage or receive. It also makes salad dressings and sauces from basic pantry ingredients. 10th, hot sauce. 2 bottles for about $3. One small bottle of hot sauce can completely change the experience of eating a bowl of plain food. It's cheap, it lasts forever, and it keeps morale up in a way that's hard to quantify but impossible to deny. 11th, bouillon cubes. 1 package of chicken and 1 of vegetable, about $3 total. Bouillon dissolves in boiling water to create broth instantly. Suddenly, a pot of plain rice becomes chicken soup. A pot of lentils becomes a savory stew. This is transformative. Total for seasonings and flavor, about $28. We have a few more categories to cover: sweeteners and extras. I bought a large container of honey, about 22 ounces, for $6. Honey is the only food that literally never expires. Archaeologists have found 3,000-year-old honey in Egyptian tombs that was still edible. Honey provides quick calories. It can be used to sweeten oats and teas, and it has antimicrobial properties useful for treating minor wounds. I also bought sugar, 2 pounds for about $2, for baking and for adding to hot beverages. And I bought instant coffee, 1 large canister for about $8. Look, I'm not going to pretend this is strictly a nutritional decision. It's a morale decision. Caffeine also provides cognitive benefits in stressful situations. A hot cup of coffee in the morning when everything is difficult is worth more than its caloric value. Multivitamins. A 90-count bottle of daily multivitamins for about $10. No matter how well you plan a food storage pantry, you will have nutritional gaps. A daily multivitamin is the insurance policy that covers those gaps. This is one of the most important items in the entire pantry, and it often gets forgotten. Total for extras, about $26. Now let me add this all up and give you the final honest accounting. Grains, $29. Legumes and protein, $30. Canned vegetables and fruit, $25. Canned proteins, $45. Fats and oils, $20. Seasonings, $28. Extras and vitamins, $26. Total, $203. I went $3 over budget. I made it up by buying the store brand version of the hot sauce instead of my preferred brand. That's it. That's the entire compromise. Now, let me walk you through what a real day of eating looks like from this pantry. Because I don't want this to feel like a list of supplies. I want you to be able to see it as actual food. Breakfast. A bowl of oatmeal made with rolled oats cooked in water, with a drizzle of honey and a pinch of salt. That's roughly 300 calories. A cup of instant coffee on the side. Mid-morning. A tablespoon of peanut butter on 2 crackers if you have them, or just straight from the spoon. Another 200 calories. Lunch. A bowl of lentil soup made with dried lentils, canned tomatoes, garlic powder, cumin, and a bay leaf. Served over a cup of cooked white rice. That's roughly 600 calories and an enormous amount of nutritional value. Afternoon. A small can of fruit, about 100 calories, a psychological treat that keeps morale intact. Dinner. Pasta with canned chicken and crushed tomatoes and a generous pinch of chili flakes, finished with a drizzle of olive oil and a splash of soy sauce. Roughly 700 calories. And honestly, not bad. Total for the day, approximately 1,100 calories, above my minimum target, nutritionally balanced, and not the bleak, joyless survival food that people imagine when they think about emergency preparedness. Let me address a few questions I know are going to come up. How do I store all of this? The honest answer is that a well-organized pantry, a couple of heavy-duty storage bins, or even a section of shelving in a closet is sufficient. The key principles are cool, dark, and dry. Heat degrades shelf life faster than almost anything else. Keep your storage away from direct sunlight and away from any heat sources. Invest in a few airtight containers for your grains and legumes if you buy them in bulk rather than sealed packages. Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers can extend shelf life dramatically for things like rice and oats. What about water? This video is focused specifically on food, but you cannot actually use most of what's on this list without water. Dried beans and rice both need water to cook. The general rule of thumb is 1 gallon of water per person per day for drinking and basic sanitation. For a 6-month supply of water, you would need approximately 180 gallons, which is a separate project entirely. Look into water storage barrels, water filtration, and rainwater collection depending on your situation. What about rotation? This is important. Don't just buy this food and forget about it. Use the first in, first out principle. When you add new cans to the shelf, move the older ones to the front. Periodically cook from your stockpile and replace what you use. This keeps your food fresh, keeps you familiar with cooking from it, and prevents the psychological shock of suddenly eating from a pantry you've never actually used. What about cooking without electricity? Several options. A propane camping stove with a few extra canisters is the easiest and most practical. A solar cooker works surprisingly well for long, slow-cooking items like beans. A wood fire or charcoal grill can handle most cooking needs. And some items on this list, like canned beans, canned tuna, peanut butter, and canned fruit, require no cooking whatsoever. Let me also tell you what I would add first if I had an extra $50. The first thing would be more canned proteins, specifically more canned chicken and a few cans of salmon for omega-3 variety. The protein category is the most expensive part of this build, and the area where more is always better. The second would be more variety in the grain category, specifically quinoa, which is a complete protein in grain form, and maybe a box or two of instant mashed potato flakes, which store well, cook instantly, and are one of the great comfort foods in emergency eating. The third would be a better vitamin situation. I'd upgrade from a basic multivitamin to include separate vitamin C and vitamin D supplements, since those are the two most likely to be deficient in a prolonged pantry eating scenario. The fourth would be crackers. Not for their nutritional value, which is modest, but because eating everything from a bowl day after day is psychologically taxing in a way that a simple cracker can partially fix. Texture variety matters more than you'd think. And the fifth would be more honey. Because more honey is always the answer. I want to leave you with something important before we wrap up. Most people wait until there's already a crisis to start thinking about food security. And by then, it's too late. The shelves are empty, the prices have spiked, the lines are long, and the $200 you didn't spend last month suddenly won't buy you 6 months of food, because everything that was affordable and available last month is now either gone or 3 times the price. The best time to build a pantry is before you need one. What I've shown you today is proof that you don't need a large budget, a large home, or a large amount of expertise to do this. $200, 1 shopping trip, 6 months of food security. That's what we built today. Start where you can. Maybe that's a $20 add to your grocery run this week. Maybe that's a few extra cans every time you're at the store. Maybe it's one big focused shopping trip like the one I did. However you start. Because here's the thing about preparedness. The people who have it don't panic when things go wrong. They adapt. They think clearly. They take care of themselves and the people they love. And that calm, that clarity, that security, you can't buy that at any price once the moment arrives. But right now, for $200, you can buy 6 months of it. Every item I bought today will be listed in the description below, including quantities, approximate prices, and links to where you can find the best deals. If you found this useful, subscribe, because every week I'm going to keep showing you practical, real-world ways to build resilience without spending a fortune. And if you have questions about anything on this list, or if you've built a pantry of your own and you want to share what worked for you, drop it in the comments. I read every single one. Stay ready.